So I'm Joe Gig Werks. I'm the managing partner of Gig Werks and the president of Project Ready. Today we're going to be looking at records management in SharePoint and Office 365 and how to really kick it up to an enterprise quality with our partner RecordPoint. Gig Werks has enjoyed a number of industry recognitions and awards over the year, of the many years we've been in business. We've been a Microsoft Gold partner since the beginning. 5-time winner of SharePoint Technical Excellence Award. We're approved vendors for legal and corporate affairs out of Microsoft. We have full expertise around the Microsoft stack itself, be it on-prem or in the cloud. And we have particular business and industry focus around legal, architecture, engineering, construction, financial services, and health sciences. We also have a product company as well, a child company of ours called Project Ready. It's a software as a service solution built on top of SharePoint and Office 365. We integrate with SharePoint, Microsoft Cloud products, on-premise data, and we really are proud of the extent to which we drive control and visibility and reporting for collaboration and document control. We have a number of packaged solutions and offerings around workshops to understand changes in SharePoint and Office 365. This is always great value for our clients at these inflection points with upgrades like 2016 coming out. We have package planning around business solutions, premium advisory services, Nintex workflow quick starts, and compliance and approval workflow quick starts. In terms of our application suite, there's the collaboration engine that transforms SharePoint into a robust and enterprise-valued project and program management system, completely driven by the end user for the business user, along with our companion suites of document control, Project Ready's Viewer, CAD, and our legal matter management engine. It's an old pillar, but always valuable in really understanding the full value of SharePoint, which increasingly is this incredibly tightly meshed solution set that offers value around sites, communities, content, search, insights, and composites, which is workflow, integration, business intelligence. And I've always been on about the power of SharePoint to aggregate in context, and where these pillars, where the sum of the parts is greater than the whole. The ability to seamlessly integrate and create a user experience that's uniform in terms of working with and mastering all these other components is where SharePoint is second to none and unique within the industry. SharePoint has long been upping its content management capabilities and continues to extend this rich set of capabilities with e-discovery, team folders, of course Record Center, which we'll briefly mention, site-level retention policies. Record Center has been around for a while but continues to improve. In 2016, we have, just want to skip ahead here very quickly, I want to get to some of 2016's compliance features. So now DLP has really kicked up both Exchange and SharePoint. The records retentions, deletion policies, the notion of security groups. These are just remarkable features that are evolving within the Office 365 stack. OneDrive for Business continues to increase its power and value within the organization. And in general, governance and management of your data and protection of your data is where Microsoft's been moving steadily, surely, and has really come on in a really amazing way with 2016. Backing up on a couple of slides here, Record Center is an out-of-the-box feature. We really find most of our clients don't take full advantage of this incredible value in terms of records destruction or retention, take your pick, and really allowing you to programmatically manage content and secure content within the enterprise. You have folder-based retention schedules, site level, content level, supports records and file plans, discovery sets, queries, in-place holds, e-discovery. All this is very tightly knit, scalable, and delivered through that platform. But why then would you look at third parties, in this case, RecordPoint? As great as the Record Center qualities are, there are a number of things it doesn't do that you really need it to do to be a full-on enterprise solution for records management. So why third parties? Out of the box, certain features don't exist, such as the ability to work with physical records, which we'll show you during the demo. The use of third parties also reduces risk and drives a higher return on investment because you know it's going to work. You don't have to build a whole bunch of custom stuff, put at peril budget, time of delivery, and so why recreate the wheel if there are quality manufacturers of solutions in market to help drive and satisfy specific business needs or industry needs around functionality and solution sets. Third parties offer scalable, easy upgrades and migrations. They have to work along with the new iterations. It's what we all guarantee as ISVs or independent software vendors. There's the speed to market, and then regulatory requirements and compliance are also big drivers of why you would adopt third-party applications. So Gig Werks has spent a number of years building out relationships within what is referred to as the Microsoft channel, working with companies such as ShareGate, TermSet, Nintex, LiveTiles, and of course RecordPoint to really address feature requirements through two different views of the same stack. One is through functionality. Are there specific needs around your enterprise content management or search? Likewise, the other way we look at the strategic implementation and recommendation of third parties around specific industry needs. So when you look at financial services, the AEC, legal, and health sciences, you all need formal records retention that is powerful, that protects you from illicit e-discovery, if you will, e-discovery that's gone too far. So it protects your interests, it lowers your overhead and costs in terms of record and binary storage. So RecordPoint works with both the on and off-prem versions of SharePoint. This certainly facilitates the emerging use of hybrid approach to deployment of SharePoint within larger enterprise firms. And with SharePoint, with RecordPoint rather, you have long-term preservation and archiving across physical records. You get record number and permalink. Records retention, you have centralized control, the ability to upload and manage records and file plans much more powerfully and much more driven for records managers and end users, upping both usability from an end user perspective and power around things such as governance and the like. Above and beyond those native capabilities that SharePoint offers, the ability to manage social records, physical records, create your own number plan, and have permalinks is no small thing. RecordPoint also sports, if you will, a policy engine, centralized dashboard where you can centrally manage records retention and policies, classifications and file plans, disposal, extension of e-discovery, export and import of records, box file or record, full audit trails and reporting, things that if you're going to be implementing records retention for compliance, powerful reporting and audit trails are really the end result that you're looking for so that you can quickly satisfy regulatory on a click. So with that, I'm going to turn over today's presentation to Ben from RecordPoint. Ben?
And I'm just going to share my screen here, so I'll leave it to a second to just do that. Great, and a great introduction. It's always great to hear our partners talking about our solution and how they're interpreting it and seeing the value within their customers. For the rest of today's kind of session, we've got about 50 minutes left or so. I'm going to only take maybe 40 minutes, 30 or 40 minutes of that to allow for some questions towards the end. I'm going to give you a quick overview of who we are, what we do, and then only a couple of slides before we dive right into a demonstration so that you can see exactly how it's used. So RecordPoint, who are we? Well, we come from the days of 2007 and SharePoint 2007, where we founded the company in Sydney, Australia, where records management is well entrenched and extremely good. We've now kind of moved out of just the Australian Asia Pacific region, and we have bases in London and Seattle. We've got over hundreds of thousands of users based around the globe, with roughly around 45% of the market share of SharePoint add-ins for records management. And our philosophy is really around trying to make records management easy, because historically it's been pretty expensive and a bit of a nightmare to have all of these systems that are out there where content can be stored, whether it's on-premise, in cloud, whether it's the legacy content systems, whether it's the more modern web systems. And our philosophy is really around trying to make records managers' lives easy, and also trying to enable end users to use the systems that they want to use in order for you to drive adoption. So we have many customers, good snapshot there of our customers, but these are really the 4 pillars of why they're using RecordPoint. First of all, and really important that it is #1 in our pillar, is usability. And this is usability for end users. We like to ensure that the systems that are being designed within businesses, within organizations, are designed for the end users first of all. So we come at it with a user-driven approach, with secondly records management following behind that. We know that end users don't want to understand records management, and quite frankly they shouldn't have to. That's not their job. So that's what we lead with. We enable that through the second pillar, which is the automation of records management. We enable kind of that automatic classification and finalization of content right through to the destruction process, so that again, reducing the overheads required. We lower the total cost of ownership because we're not a separate solution. We sit right on top of SharePoint. You'll see that through the demonstration. So there's no need for you to maintain other systems. There's no need for you to stand up other hardware. It's already on systems that you've got because you've invested in the Microsoft stack. And our final pillar there around compliance everywhere is really, I guess, our mantra is around reaching out and extending the solution so that we can actually have compliance everywhere, whether that's in SharePoint on-premise, Office 365, Yammer, file shares, social media, all of this other content that exists outside of some of the more heavily used and entrenched systems that are there. So we have a connector series that allows you to connect out to those locations, and we'll be looking at one of those connectors in today's demo. It's important to note that we are compliant and meeting the following standards, such as the global ISO standards there, and that's important just for you to have assurance around the features that we have and what we do as a product. And these features effectively make us compliant to those standards that you saw on the previous page. So we have many features that we'll go through in today's demonstration. I think the important one that I will call out straight away, though, is this centralized dashboard. This is a unique place for records managers. This isn't somewhere where your end users go. We totally split out where end users are working and where records managers are working. And records managers work within one central dashboard. The content can be in many different systems, but the records managers sit in one centralized dashboard. And that's important to note as I go through today's demonstration. Finally, just a highlight of the 2 products and kind of calling out which one that I'll be showing you today. We have RecordPoint for on-premise solutions with some connectors, the USB sticks down there at the bottom, that are connecting out to file shares, they're connecting out to social media, and they're connecting out to Office 365. So that's if you're using a hybrid scenario and perhaps have some workloads that are sitting out in Office 365, then that's the product that you would choose to use. But if you're all in on Office 365 and you're looking for management of a SaaS solution, then Records 365 is our SaaS and service offering that we can provide to you, and we can still reach out to file shares and social sites that you're connecting to. So I believe that's the end of my deck, and we'll go right into a demonstration. And for today's demonstration, the persona that I'm actually going to take today is someone that's sitting within my Contoso organization and is sitting within a finance team that's responsible for effectively management of contracts. So that's the persona of the person that I will take in terms of them doing their day-to-day lives with what is some of the great solutions that Office 365 has to offer. And Office 365 has been implemented in my environment, so I get a nice welcome screen rather here to my organization, a nice intranet portal site that I can see many different sites. I've got my communities, my departments up here, and various other things. I've got my Yammer integrations, so the social media integrations sitting right here. And actually, first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little post that asks me what I was working on. So doing a great webinar. That's what I'm working on, and I'm purely doing that just so that we can have a look at that when it comes to records management side of the world, because the Yammer feed is actually currently being managed by RecordPoint in the background, but as an end user, I don't know that, and I don't need to know that. I'm just using a social collaboration tool provided to me by my organization. So second of all, the second scenario that I'm going to walk through is I'm going to go into my finance department, and I'm going to create a contract. So here's my homepage to my finance department. I've got some recently used document libraries on the left-hand side where we store content. I'm going to go into the contracts location, which is, to be honest, where I sit for the majority of my day creating these contracts. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new contract. So I click on the new and click on contract. And it's important to note here that I'm really just using kind of Office 365 SharePoint's capabilities here, creating a document set, which again is a SharePoint concept, and that doesn't necessarily need to be entrenched in what you're using. That's just an example of what I'm using within this scenario. You might not be using document sets for this example. So this contract is going to be for cups. I've got one in front of me, so that one came to mind first, and things like this metadata is very just much business-centric metadata. I can enter this in. The contract number I know, so I'm going to enter that in. The record number I don't know about, and for the purpose of this demonstration I've got it shown there, but I'm actually not going to bother entering in a record number because I don't know what that is, because I'm taking on the persona of someone who's not record savvy. I do know what the contract value is for these cups, and we have a lot of cups in our organization. So it's around $2 million worth for this contract, and there's an end date. The cups need to be renewed in 5 years' time. So I'm actually going to change this to 2021, and that's when that contract is up for renewal effectively. So I'm just going to save that. It's created effectively this contract document set, and I'm going to add a document into it, and I'm actually going to add the draft of the contract that I've been working on into this document set, so that when I get a signed approval, I can also add it into this location, and we can manage all of the kind of documents as one single entity from here, which makes sense to me, and it'll be nice for me to organize that. So I'm going to upload a document. Click the upload button. Again, nothing special here. I'm just using standard out of the box functionality. I'm going to click on my draft for cups. Okay, up that goes into SharePoint. It asks me for some metadata, but again, not much metadata. That's fine. I'm good. I don't need to add anything there. I'm just going to click save and forget that, because ultimately that's what end users do. They don't want the burden of records management. They don't want the burden of having to be prompted for any classification, or how long should this be kept for, or any information like that, because they don't know, and it adds confusion. It also adds a risk that it could be incorrect. So whilst that's happening, and whilst that's being uploaded, which it looks like it's done now, but I just want to explain a little bit around what's happened from a records perspective in the background. So I've actually got records enabled from the point of adding content into this Office 365 environment. So as soon as any content's added, it's going to be known to by RecordPoint, and it's going to go through its classification engine to try and be classified. As an end user, I entered some business data, which I can absolutely complete. That's information that I'm aware of. But what I didn't realize is that that's actually driving the classification, and it's driving the retention, and also the disposal trigger date. And I'll just explain a little bit about how that's happening. So this document's gone into a document set, and this document set is what's driving the retention of the records that are going into it. So the contract value I put in is $2 million. What I didn't realize is that that's actually going to drive the classification of this contract for a major contract. I've got it stated within RecordPoint that anything above $1 million is a major contract. Anything below $1 million is a minor contract. And that's important to distinguish that an end user doesn't have to make that decision. We've separated the business logic from the records logic here to ensure that we get accurate data and accurate profiling and classification of the document. By me also entering a contract end date, I'm actually driving the retention to be a period of time based on that contract end date. So in this case, the contract end date is going to drive the trigger date, which drives the retention. And again, we'll see that when we come to looking at some of the records information. But again, I knew what the contract end date, but if you'd have asked me how long I should be keeping it for and what date should it be up for disposal, I wouldn't know as an end user. So we don't ask them those questions. We can programmatically define rules that we'll look into in order to achieve the outcome. So what is and what can an end user do in terms of seeing records information? Well, they can come into this advanced section within Office 365 and Sites, and they can see a record summary. So I can click on that link, and this takes me to a snapshot of the records information that is available to the end users. And providing this has been accepted by RecordPoint, then this will be displayed. And it looks like it absolutely has. So as you can see, and something that Joe kind of mentioned earlier, it has a unique record number, and that's across the entire corpus of records. The document ID service provided by SharePoint doesn't really quite cut the mustard in terms of providing that uniqueness. We can absolutely guarantee that across the entire solution. It's also been given a classification. So in this case, it's gone into my procurement, contracting, contract awards, major contract. And I spoke briefly there about how it was classified as a major contract based on the value of the contract. So this has already been classified. It's already sitting on the file plan at the correct location without anyone needing to do anything. The record state is important, and it says here that it's a stub. That's important because what I'm doing is effectively an in-place records management at the moment, because in RecordPoint there is a stub and the actual item sits within SharePoint. It's still editable, so it hasn't been made read-only yet, and hence the finalization type is not applicable because it's still a collaboration document. It hasn't been finalized and it hasn't been declared as that final record and made read-only. We also have a disposal action due date, so that's been derived based off the classification of a major contract, and we can see here that in 2036 this is going to be disposed of, or be up for disposal. And we have a container. So very much like the physical world of records sitting within files, sitting within boxes, we have a very similar thing in the electronic world, whereby this record 1551 sits within a container 252. And I've set that container level to be at my document set level for this particular site collection. So I know that I can, from a records perspective, manage containers, so manage a slightly broader set of records. I don't necessarily need to go through and manage it record by record. So we have absolutely something unique there that means that you don't have to do disposal based on records. You can do it on the container level. So certainly will speed up those disposition and review processes. And that's really the only information that an end user can go and see. And to be honest, that's all an end user really needs to see. That's enough information for them, and they certainly don't need to go into any more details. What I'm now going to do is flip over to the records world. And in the records world, we enter through the RecordPoint dashboard. I'm just going to refresh this page so it updates with some of the latest stuff that we've just been demonstrating through this this scenario. And we can see here that I'm given a heads-up display of how many records there are across my system, how many of them are classified, how many disposals I have that are sat there waiting to be records that are sat there waiting to be disposed, also files, so the aggregation point of those waiting to be disposed, and lots of other useful information in terms of alerts and system messages right from here. And it's important to note that this is the only dashboard that I manage all of my records for. So let's go into my records browser and see effectively the stream of records that's coming into this system. And you can see that the top two records there are the two that I've just created in the system. First of all, I added to my Yammer stream a quick post saying I'm doing a great webinar, and that's come through as a record. That has come through a record and it's been classified. It's been given a unique record number, as we'd expect, and it's been classified based on a simple classification of short term to be destroyed in 2 years' time. So we have a different classification. A rule has picked that up. It's automatically classified it. It's seen that it's a Yammer post, and it's put it against the file plan and given it a 2-year retention policy. Unlike the one that's above it, which did get picked up still, it still went through our rules engine, but it's been given a much longer retention period, and it's been classified to a different location. So we can see here that it's going to be destroyed in 2036, and it's given a record classification of training. Now I can browse my file plan, my classification, by just going through these nodes here, and I know that the ones that I've been working on today are in my training section, and they're right within my procurement, contracting, contract awards, and major contract. That's the node of the file plan that I'm currently had some records at, and you can see there's my contract for cups, which is extremely useful. So a real nice ability for me to browse my file plan from one section, and this is covering all of the records regardless of where they are, whether they're on premise in my Office 365, they could be Yammer, Twitter, Facebook posts, it could even be a file share content that we're using the File Connect product to go out and look at. So that's how you go about browsing this content, and you know, if this isn't quite what you're after, then you can use the key filters that are down here to put in some more information around. Perhaps you're looking for records from a particular author, then you can enter all of that information in here and narrow it down even further. And needless to say, because this is built on SharePoint constructs, the columns are all configurable. What you see in the left-hand side and what you see in the filters are absolutely configurable to make sure that you're getting the records information that's important to you. What I'm now going to just show you is a little bit about how this got classified automatically, because that's where the power comes in. So I'm just going to select this item. I'm going to also zoom out a little bit just to show you the full array of buttons. And I'm going to go in and select a couple of actions first. I'm going to view the item, so this is going to view the record that's sitting here. This item, remember, still exists within the SharePoint site. We haven't moved it into RecordPoint yet, and we could do that at a later date if we wanted to, based on a policy or based on something else. But at the moment, it's still a collaboration document, so it's still there. And you can see that we've got a snapshot here of a lot of the information that a records manager may well want to know, such as the disposition information, the author, where it's come from, and what container it's sitting within. So all of this is available to the records manager. And again, as I said, we're actually going to go in and look at how this got classified. So I'm going to go in and click Validate Rules and view the rule that this item hit, because The kind of automation process of this is really around the rules and the capability that the rules has to do the automation. And rules look for patterns within content. So what we're doing here is we're actually looking for two patterns, and we were looking for one pattern that said the list name, so in this case a document library, needs to equal contracts. We were also looking for a second pattern, and that second pattern was there needs to be a metadata value on this record that's called contract value. That piece of metadata needs to be on the container, and it needs to be greater than 1 million. So that's where we looked for the contract value being more than $1 million. So these two patterns together are basically saying that it's going to be a big contract from the contracts document library. And if that's the case, and if those two patterns are both found, then the outcome is going to be applied, which is that it goes into the part of the file plan that is procurement contracting, contract awards major contract, and gets a disposal action associated to it. It's important to note that the disposal actions, if I go in and just have a look at those, you can see here that I've calculated the disposal action based on the contract end date, and we entered that in when we were creating the contract within the SharePoint site. And what it's going to do is going to calculate 20 years after that contract end date in order for this item to be disposed. Now that's a fairly complex rule, and you can imagine that's really quite specific to one area within SharePoint, within one area within the finance team. We effectively show this rule to just show the power of the rules engine, and we absolutely do have customers using rules just like this. But from someone who's coming at this fairly green and fairly kind of fresh, what we actually encourage is a much more of a broader approach to writing rules. And something like the rule below is a good example of that. So this webinar post that I put on Yammer has a much broader rule. So if I look at the rule that this record hit, you can see that this rule is something very simple. It's basically saying that there needs to be a metadata item on it that says that the source system is Yammer. So a very broad rule that's saying the content needs to come from Yammer, and any content coming from Yammer needs to be kept for 2 years and then disposed of. Now you could have absolutely done that with content from SharePoint. You could have done that with content from specific sites within SharePoint, from specific content types within SharePoint. It's absolutely, very much the way that we would propose this is that you'd start off nice and broad with some nice broad rules that classifies the content, and then manage by exception. So manage those riskier areas where there's more kind of higher risk content that you need particular outcomes for on a case-by-case basis. And then the good thing is that you have everything classified from the start, and then you can dig into it a little bit deeper and start reclassifying content and resubmitting content through the rules engine so that it gets reclassified after a period of time. And that's where the true power of RecordPoint comes in, because end users don't need to touch any of this, they don't need to know it's happening. It's all happening from a completely different interface that they're not at all involved in. The final, final stage on this record journey, I guess, is the destruction process. And the destruction process is nice and simple for records managers. I'll just bring up the wizard here that we have for managing disposal. Disposal consists of really 3 stages. Firstly, it's about the records manager getting a batch together of all of the content that needs to be disposed of, and it can do it at an individual record level, or it can do it at a container level. So it could do it at a much higher level if there's lots of records that are up for disposal. Once they have those containers, what we call batches, then they can split that up further into different views to send out to the business for approval. So, for example, within that batch, you might have some HR records. You might also have some finance records that need to be approved by different people within the business. And you can send those views out to those different people. They click on the link and they get taken to a page where they can go through the approval process. I'll just go through that now and show you that I've already got a batch created. I can absolutely add more items to the batch. It tells me exactly what is up for disposal, and I can kind of narrow that down. Once I have that content, as I said, I can create these views and email these views out to specific people. So use the email feature here to email those out. But what effectively they'll get is a page where they can come, they can see the content, they can select the content, and they can approve or reject that content for disposition. Just them approving the content for disposition doesn't actually do the disposition itself. It then comes back to the records manager to come back into the wizard and apply the disposition action. And they can only obviously dispose of content that has been approved. And once it has been approved, they come in, see that it's been approved, and they actually can dispose of this content. They can do an export of a report at this point just to gather that details, and we do defensible destruction. So what I mean by that is we wipe the content, but we keep the metadata and we keep a report that the items have been disposed of and all of the associated metadata that justifies what was disposed of. So you have that information should you need to prove it outside of your organization. And that's really the final stage of a kind of an easy flow of records management within RecordPoint. There are things that can get in the way, absolutely, such as holds. And you can come in here, you can create a legal hold. You can then use our search capabilities to search for content. And I'll do a quick search here for test and bring back some content. You can bring back content and you can apply content to a hold, which would obviously prevent the destruction of that content. So adding items here to a hold would just effectively put them on pause until the hold is lifted, and then they can continue on their life cycle. So that's one way that a disposal can be effectively stopped of a record. Some of the other features within here are the ability to export records. So if you need to export this out to give to either a legal team, or if you need to give it off to a long-term preservation team, then you can absolutely do that, such as NARA or someone like that. Then you can export it onto file, and you can burn that to a disk or FTP it up to them, depending on what they want. And the formats are completely configurable, but we do allow the export of the actual files and also the metadata that's associated with them as well. We have full physical management capabilities as well of physical records, something that Joe touched on. And that's something that's really nicely integrated. If you already have a physical system or a spreadsheet, as I see more often out there, or some database, then what we do is we just convert that into a format that we can upload it into RecordPoint so that it can continue on managing that content. And then from a day-to-day process, we can add new records either by one using this way, or again through import mechanisms. And I can add new physical content types. I can state things like who has what the content is, rather, where it's located, what records sit within which files, sit within which boxes. So there's a container field down here that you can enter in, and then we have the ability for these physical records to go on loan, and we have the ability for you to track those loans and all of that stuff that you'd expect from kind of a library system. And you can see here that we have some requests, some files that are on loan, and even tracking which ones are overdue as well. So that I can come in here and track those physical items as well. And they sit in exactly the same user interface. They can go through the rules, or they can be manually classified. and they come up for disposition at the same time that electronic content comes up for disposition as well, so that you can get a report that says that they were disposed, and you can obviously go off and actually dispose of that content. Finally, to round out this kind of I guess this overview of RecordPoint, I'm just going to show you a couple of the management settings, and specifically around the security and permissions, because that seems very important to understand. And despite this being built on SharePoint, we actually have our own unique permission sets. So when you come in here, and I'm actually logged in at the moment as the records administrator, having full access to everything. But I can create roles that assign certain permissions to certain groups. So perhaps I have people that I want to come in here that can only dispose of content, or can only view content. Then, as you can see here, we have a long list of very granular permissions that allow you to do all the different types of capabilities and features that we have within RecordPoint, so that you can have different parts of your organization doing that. You don't just need a one person with permission to do everything and trust that they're going to do that. So again, a really nice feature there of allowing you to control access. And that really sums up the high-level features of RecordPoint. I've shown you kind of the full life cycle there of a record, both from an electronic kind of document perspective and also a social record as well. As I mentioned, we reach out to a number of different repositories that store content, such as Yammer, such as Facebook and Twitter, and bring that through into the one system. We briefly showed how the rules are created and how they can be quite complex, or you can actually have them very simple in order to populate content on your file plan, and have that unique view for records managers that end users don't need to see and don't want to see, but having those two different views of the same content is so powerful and allows everyone to do their job to the best of their ability. And then we went through the disposal process, and the legal and the ability to apply legal holds to stop that disposal process as well. And that kind of covers everything. So Richard and Joe, thank you very much for inviting RecordPoint onto this session.
Thank you again, everyone, for joining today. We always appreciate the time you take out of the day to attend our webcast. Thanks to RecordPoint and Ben for the presentation. Additional information or questions, please do reach out to us. We are here to help explain and edify, as it were. So again, thank you, everybody, and talk to you next time.